Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Dr. Marilu. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. I'm going to talk today about emotional detachment and how this is our most powerful tool as ladies in dealing with men, especially dealing with men who need to be filtered out. We haven't quite gotten there yet where we're certain that this person needs to be cut out of our lives, but we've had some issues come up and we understand, hey, you know what? I need to be more careful. I need to observe this man and decide whether or not he's going to be in my life. So, especially in those situations where you're in that gray area where like things aren't great, but you haven't quite decided yet, emotional detachment is going to give you the clarity of mind and the confidence to walk away from that relationship. The thing that's keeping you stuck in that relationship is the emotional entanglement. Entanglement stresses your brain out. It turns off the frontal lobe, which is your executive functioning. This is where we make all of our most sophisticated decisions as adults, right? This part of the brain isn't even fully formed until after age 25. So you can imagine how compromised your process is when you're under so much emotional stress. And the biggest question that I hear in working with clients is, I don't know if it's me or if it's him. And as a woman, especially, a lot of women are conditioned to please and to always do the right thing and to be the good woman. That really freezes us. We don't know what to do because we want to do the right thing. And if our frontal lobe is compromised because of all the emotional stress, we're not going to be able to know with confidence that, in fact, that person is the problem and not you. And what a lot of men will do is they're so unwilling to do some of their own personal work in therapy that they will project back onto you their own fears and insecurities when you are pushing buttons of truth in them, right? You have your intuition, you're giving him feedback of the things you're noticing, and he's going to deflect and project because men, most of the men are not really willing to do that deeper inner shadow work to build genuine intimacy, right? So you're knocking on intimacy's door and you're getting all this pushback, and it can be very disorienting. And when you're feeling gaslit, there's a cognitive dissonance that happens, right? Where your mind is being told this truth, but your body knows this other truth is the real truth. And that cognitive dissonance can be very disorienting for you as a woman. So you may have very strong reactions that you no longer feel in control of. And that's where you get hooked because you know that you're not in control of your feelings. That makes you vulnerable to be gaslit and manipulated because you, in fact, are proving to yourself that you're in a weakened state because you know that you're not in control of your feelings. You can't deny that. Now, I, as your coach, can come in and validate those feelings and give you a map to work with so that you can begin to validate your own feelings because we start to deconstruct what's happening. He does this, he says this, but wait a minute. When he says this, it contradicts this other thing that he's doing. So it looks like there's some holes there. We start to poke holes in the manipulative narrative, and that can help you to validate your feelings. But nothing will bring your power back to you more than detaching emotionally, because that leads you to be able to regulate your own emotions, which turns into confidence in yourself, belief in your own power again. We need proof to really believe in ourselves sometimes as women. We need to see hard, tangible evidence. And a trained professional can tell you, your mother or your sister can tell you, but until you yourself are feeling the change in your behavior, that you're no longer getting triggered by the same old things, that's when you start to believe in yourself again. I'm going to get some water. So, the emotional detachment is the one thing that's going to help you believe in yourself again and reclaim your power in that dynamic. Nothing else can get you there. because anything else that gets you there is requiring you to give your power away to someone else or something else, whether it's a church or a therapist or a coach. And so you can say, okay, I'm not going to believe him anymore. Now I'm going to believe this person. But you're still not in your own power. You're replaying the same dynamic. So deep down, you're still in a prison. You're still suffering. It's not until you prove it to yourself through the actions of emotional detachment that you start to free yourself up, that you start to regain your power. So, how do we begin to do this? It is so simple and yet profoundly difficult. I would say it's one of the most difficult things that we can do as human beings is to learn to regulate our emotions, because when we regulate our emotions, we are changing our brain chemistry. We're rewiring our brain. That is so hard to do. If you've ever tried to change a habit or kick an addiction, you know how hard it is, especially in the beginning and towards the end, where you're creating that change and you're building new neural network connections in your brain. It feels so uncomfortable. So, a lot of fear can come up when we're learning to emotionally detach. We can be very afraid of the unknown because it just feels weird. I don't know how else to explain it. It just feels like you're going to die if you stop behaving and responding in that way. It's like when we react to that trigger, we're defending ourselves, right? We're trying to protect ourselves in the face of gaslighting, in the face of that confusion where we know that something is wrong, but our mind can't comprehend exactly what it is yet. So we're left feeling in this desperate, vulnerable place. However, when we fight back, but we don't have leverage, we're actually sabotaging ourselves. And that's why, as victims of abuse, we dig ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper into the hole. And it's just crazy making because you're giving the abuser way more ammo to point the finger at you and say, see, you're the crazy one. You're the one that's throwing stuff. You're the one that's cussing me out. You're the one that's getting the cops called and blah, 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 whatever. Why? Because you're freaking out. You're in this reactive state. That doesn't mean that you're the problem. And I can tell you that. Other experts can tell you that. But until you start to learn how to regulate your emotions, you're going to continue to see yourself as possibly part of the problem at best, if not the entire problem, where you're in self sabotage mode and no one will get you out of it. So, emotional detachment will bring up this fear of if I don't react, he wins. If I don't react, he's never going to stop abusing me. I'm never going to be seen and heard. You're in such a mentally broken down place because of the verbal psychological abuse that sometimes can be external, like actual verbal abuse, or it could be internal, like neglect. Neglect is also a very powerful form of manipulation that a lot of men use, and it goes under the radar. So it's very, very violent neglect, and we don't often label it that because it goes unperceived, right? So that has broken you down mentally to the point where you question yourself so much and you don't know how to respond, and you're in such a vulnerable place that you're desperate for being seen and heard and validated. That's what it is that's the fuel, that's the gas to the fire, is like you've been so broken down, humiliated, made to be invisible, that you're desperate to be seen and heard and validated. So that's where these explosive reactions come from. And sometimes they can be physical, sometimes they can be just verbal, emotional, um, just crazy reactions as the victim of an abusive man, right? So it's it's not that the behavior is necessarily justified, although I would argue it is. But if you're becoming abusive towards that person, yes, we can deal with the fact that, hey, this is not healthy behavior. However, I frame it as self-sabotage, because you're not the one causing the dynamic, you are feeding into it. And you are fanning the flames, right? Because that self-sabotage is there because you're not in control of your emotions. So again, emotional detachment plays the most significant role in taking your power back with an abusive man. And I'm talking full spectrum abuse, the worst of physical violence with choking and things like that, or the most subtle, which is neglect, ignoring you. That's the most subtle form of abuse. Really just accepting zero influence from you as a woman. That is very common, where you know that that man does not actually care. He's giving you no leverage. Like, you have no leverage over that person. So you can be hurting, you could be in need, you can be desiring something, and he's like in his program, does not even notice you. That is absolutely on the spectrum of abuse. So it could be anywhere on that spectrum where you are now starting to sabotage yourself because you're trying to fight back, but you have no leverage and you're emotionally dysregulated. So you're proving to yourself and convincing yourself that you're the problem subconsciously. And then all he has to do is point his finger one time, and now you're freaking out, going to therapy, saying, "What's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. I can't have a healthy relationship. I'm ruining my marriage." You have no idea how often I work with this in my practice. So I'm here to teach you how to emotionally detach. It's so simple, yet so difficult to do. The first thing is we have to get comfortable working with our body. You have to shift gears completely away from your mind in the books and the podcasts and the learning and the videos, and except for videos like this, and all of the tools that you're used to kind of absorbing when you're so desperate to try to change the way that you are. Drop all of that and just simply sink into your body and understand that from now on, we're only going to look at the language of your body, where it's tense, where it's tight, where it's cold, where it's maybe softer and more relaxed, where it's like your heart rate is accelerated, your palms are sweaty, your eyes get a little tunnel vision, your mouth gets a little dry, you feel like running or taking off. You have to start understanding the language of your nervous system and your body, and drop the storylines, drop the narratives. They are useless when it comes to you emotionally detaching. And we're so used to living up here when we are in trauma because our body is going through so much that we disconnect from it, we dissociate. And that keeps us in that place of no leverage, which makes it self sabotage when we try to fight back with no leverage, right? So we start to learn the language of our bodies. We drop the narratives, get into the energy, get into the physiological energy. So right now, while you're watching this video, I want you to notice how the weight of your body feels on your seat, whether you're on a couch, a chair, or a bed. Just notice the weight of that. And you can place one hand on your chest and notice if you're breathing from your belly, your diaphragm, or if you're breathing from your chest up here, shallow breathing, right? And so in these 2 minutes, you have shifted your energy away from up here, trying to learn, trying to understand, down into connecting with your body. There are a million practices to help you connect. The easiest thing to do, the most accessible, is to start a regular yoga practice. There are so many studios everywhere. It doesn't have to be the most spiritual yoga or the best yoga or whatever. Just a practice that aligns your breath with your movement. If you can do it on your own by just going on regular walks where you're practicing that mindfulness of connecting into your body, then that's okay too. That's more difficult to do. I would suggest start a yoga practice twice a week, 3 times a week, where you go for an hour and you include it into your routine and you prioritize it. And this is also a wonderful time to switch gears away from the relationship, where he's going to notice that you are now taking care of yourself. And this is an important signal for that person so that he sees that he's losing leverage. But most importantly, the practice itself is what's nourishing you and giving you the resource that you need to start practicing emotional detachment. Because if we don't know how to be calm in our bodies, we don't know how to recognize the triggers, the statements, the comments, the silence, the ignoring body language, all of that that activates us, right? When we learn to calm our bodies, we start to notice those behaviors. It's the most, it's the craziest thing when you start to do these practices. You literally start to see your partner differently. Like you notice things about them that you didn't notice before. Like your groundedness allows you a more objective mind where it's so much easier to see, wow, this person is out of line. This person is being negligent. This person is being abusive. This person is being harmful to me. And because your brain is healing along with your nervous system, you can start to rationalize things in a different way of like, why would a person harm me if they claim to love me? You start to think things through differently. Why would he say he loves me so much, and yet here's an opportunity to be supportive of me, and he's purposefully neglecting me? It's like you start to catch on to the cognitive dissonance. Things start to align in your brain because your body is learning to be calm. You're practicing calm. And in doing so, now you can make conscious decisions to pivot away from that person, that activity, that conversation, that moment of tension, and have a calm tone of voice, calm statements such as, can we talk about this another time? I'm just not feeling well right now. I'm going to go lay down. And he's used to getting all of this reaction from you. And when you say that, you're in your power. My love, when you start practicing this in the face of a trigger, you go into that room and a part of you is activated because there's momentum from the old pattern. But then another part of you is kind of like, wow, that didn't really bother me the way it normally would. Do that enough times and your brain starts to register, I'm in control. I'm in power. I have power over myself and nobody else has power over me. No, you can't learn that by somebody telling you that. You have to live it by your body finally cooperating with self-love. And that starts with calming your body, doing a practice regularly, weekly, that helps you to practice being calm, that takes time away from your relationship and invests in your relationship with self. And then you anticipate the next trigger as an opportunity to practice the emotional detachment. You're not doing it spitefully, you're not doing it to prove a point. You're doing it because you're healing, because you're seeing that that person is not worth it. They're not worth reacting to anymore. The more and more you do it, the worse their behavior is going to get at first, and the more you're going to prove your instinct was right all along, that this man is not healthy and that you deserve better. And from this place, you can start planning your exit. It could take years to exit, but you start planning it, because you exiting with dignity and with resources, with money in your bank account and a plan is so important for you to be okay, because that's all that this is about you being okay. So ladies, remember, emotional detachment through nervous system self-regulation is the portal towards gaining your power back in that abusive dynamic where he's got you all confused, you're sabotaging yourself, and you don't know what to do. Follow me for more and let me know in the comments if you've had any experiences with this or anything at all to add to this conversation. Thank y'all so much.